Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. The EU, the Alliance with America, is breaking down. Now, I've said this before in other videos. As the energy crisis gets worse, if you operate on the assumption that politicians' number one goal is to get reelected, you might assume that if alliances are causing energy shortages in the United States and this support for Ukraine at all costs is causing people to freeze in Europe, people might start to question those alliances because it will cause them not to get reelected. And the EU is speaking out, not just with the Inflation Reduction Act that is subsidizing companies to come from Europe to the United States, but also with what the United States is doing in Ukraine. So let's take a look at this article from Zero Hedge here. And it talks about what the EU and their leaders are actually saying about the war in Ukraine because push is coming to shove. You can put a band aid over an economic problem by printing money, but you cannot put a band aid over a supply of energy problem because printing money just makes the problem worse. And that's what Europe has done. A lot of European countries are handing out stimulus checks, which is upping demand, and they're not doing anything on the supply front. And this has been years in the making. Obviously, Germany being reliant on Russia for energy was not a good decision, but here we are. So, the title of the article says EU accuses Washington of making a fortune on the Ukraine war. You don't say. Washington has never made a fortune on war. 9 months after invading Ukraine, Vladimir Putin is beginning to fracture the West, according to Politico. Observers, in a surprising admission, which marks a stark reversal from prior mainstream media optimism and cheerleading of the White House's blank check approach to Ukraine. So, U.S. supporting Ukraine, not encouraging some kind of ceasefire. And because at the end of the day, when your opponent, aka Russia, has nukes, uh, what what kind of bargaining power do you have? And I always say the enemy gets a vote. And you have to operate in reality of what's going on here. So, top European officials are furious with Joe Biden administration and now accuse the Americans of making a fortune from the war, with while EU countries suffer. Now, why are they suffering? So, the sanctions on Russia and Russian oil have caused European gas prices to go up. And where is Europe buying their gas from? Well, they're buying it from China, who's getting it from Russia, and then they're upcharging Europe. But they're also buying it from the United States at these astronomical oil prices. It's helping the United States. A senior European official speaking to Politico additionally blasted the White House policy of the effect of using the Ukraine war to line the pockets of American defense contractors because all these countries, obviously, if we're subsidizing, we're sending essentially free weapons. And so there's a lot of corruption going on there. Ukraine has notoriously been corrupt, and luckily for us, Washington's not corrupt. But but people are getting rich on top of the fact that other countries around the world are now rebuilding their militaries because of this threat that they didn't think was possible in the 21st century. Where are they buying a lot of those weapons from? The United States. So they're lining the pockets of Americans' defense contractors while at the same time turning a deaf ear to European pleas for some relief to the no-win situation. The fact is, if you look at this soberly, the country that is most profiting from the war in the U.S. is the U.S. because they are selling more gas at a higher price and because they are selling more weapons, the senior official said. The senior official out of the U.S., out of the EU. You ever heard anything like this from the EU? I don't think so. And like I said, if you operate on the assumption that politicians' number one concern is getting reelected, it doesn't help them get reelected. High energy prices. Doesn't matter what you can virtue signal for a short period of time, but when reality sets in, like the government spending money, they virtue signal. They say everyone needs, like during COVID 1984, they said, stay home, we'll print money, yada, yada. But then when the consequences come, people aren't such a big fan of that. Consequences being inflation and supply chain disruption. Further reading here, we are really at a historic juncture, the senior EU official said, arguing that the double hit of trade disruption from the US subsidies, remember the United States is paying companies to make green products, remember the free market, if people wanted to buy them, they were better, cheaper energy, you wouldn't have to subsidize it, okay? So we are now into the malinvestment territory. We are spending money or energy to get less energy return from this green energy. Okay, but on top of that, we are taking companies from Europe because if they can make products cheaper in the United States, and not just cheaper, get free money handed to them by the government. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to do that. The EU official said America needs to realize that public opinion is shifting in many EU countries. We operate in a world of reality. What I mean by that is if you want to virtue signal about the war in Ukraine, that's fine. But when people can't eat or they cannot heat their home, people start to ask questions. And EU officials want to get reelected. And when those people are asking questions and this we must back Ukraine no matter what, and it's costing people their business and their livelihood, people are going to have issues with that. And a lot of people are blaming the United States because the United States is who is pushing for these sanctions. All right, back to the article here. All right, so the United States, like I said, sells them gas at an upcharge with a multiplier effect of 4 when it crosses the Atlantic. European Commissioner for International Markets Thierry Breton said to French TV on Wednesday. Of course, the Americans are our allies, but when something goes wrong, it is necessary also between allies to say it. Another EU diplomat cited in Politico report describes Biden's $369 billion industrial subsidy scheme to support the green industries as part of the Inflation Reduction Act unleashed panic across European capitals. So, what has happened in the past, and history shows, France came to the United States when we had our gold-backed currency, and they said they wanted their gold. And we said, sorry, go pound sand. We are now not a gold-backed currency. We're closing the gold window. We screwed Europe before. And I don't know. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this globalist movement where everyone is in this symbiotic relationship, benefits you, it benefits us. That is breaking down. And I think at the base layer, is breaking down because currencies are breaking down. So when currencies break down, there's a breakdown of trust. And since the United States has the world reserve currency, all these countries are looking at how they are wielding that world reserve currency. And they're like, man, that is kind of screwing us. And they're right. It is. It is. So as this reality sets in, which is you cannot print energy, countries are going to start to look at maybe Russia saying, hey, if you pay us in euros or rubles, then you can have your energy back. Or maybe they'll start investing in energy. But for now, I do think this is a long play, but EU is going, unity doesn't happen when there's an energy shortage. When there's one piece of bread and 4 hungry people, fights start to break out. Sharing and the symbiotic relationship just does not happen as much. I think you're going to continue to see more of that over this decade. And it'll play out politically, but economically in the form of supply chains. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. See you guys in the next one. Peace.